So this video was supposed to go before my Superman one, but I uploaded the Superman Brainiac review / analysis first by accident. But this thing put me in a really bad mood, and Superman Brainiac brought me back into a good mood. But the reason why this series brought me into a bad mood is just because it's plain goddamn awful. I mean, this is just a terrible show. Like, not even in comparison with the fantastic original series. Like, this is just an awful show in general. Like, this is probably going to be one of my hardest reviews I've ever gonna done, because I really have to break this down into like sections and stuff. So the basic premise of Legend of Korra is this. It takes place in this world, this Asian-inspired world, where there are the four nations, the Fire Nation, the Earth Kingdom, the Water Tribes, and the Air Nomads, and each of these people can manipulate the elements, fire, earth, water, air, and such, and then you have ordinary people like us also living in this world, and they're known as non-benders. This takes place about 70 years after the original series, and it mostly takes place in Republic City. See, after the 100-Year War in the original Avatar: The Last Airbender cartoon, Aang and the group, along with Zuko, they basically created a fifth nation called the United Republic. And the Republic City is the center of the United Republic. It's basically the center of the whole world. And it sort of represents the combination of all of the nations in one city. They've all basically been working together for the past 70 years to build this technically advanced city. The city's technology is about at the level of, I want to say, like us in the early 20th century. Like, there's a lot of steampunk influence going on there. And the basic storyline begins like 70 years after the original series, and it follows the new Avatar Korra from the Water Tribes. Like, she's like this bending prodigy. She's mastered firebending, earthbending, and waterbending by the age of 17, and now she goes to travel to Republic City to meet Aang's son, Tenzin, who's the last remaining airbending master, in the whole world, so that she can finally master all four elements and become a fully realized avatar. And when she goes to this city, she basically finds out that there is this man called Amon, this masked man who's leading this shadow group called the Equalists. The Equalists basically believe that benders control all the power in the city, which they do. They're oppressing non-benders, which they are, and non-benders are basically second-class citizens to benders, which they are. And so you get this really interesting main plot, this main storyline that deals with these themes of prejudice that really work for like the early 20th century, because in America you had a similar thing going on with, between white people and the Native Americans. There was this whole segregation thing going on in the early 20th century. And so, and it's actually a relevant theme today. There are still people out there that are being treated as second-class citizens because of their ethnicity or their faith or whatever. And it's a really interesting main story, and it really should work on paper. Like, these guys have done deep themes in Avatar: The Last Airbender, and they've done them very well. Like, in my opinion, Avatar: The Last Airbender is one of the most sophisticated shows, animated series that's ever been made in America. It's right up there with Batman the Animated Series, Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes, Young Justice. It works with all of those. It's right up there among the best. And the main thing that destroys the main plot, which deserves most, if not all, of the attention of the 12 episodes, which is something I should mention. This season only lasts 12 episodes, and when you're going to tell a big story like this, and a story with a lot of themes like this, you need to almost completely dedicate all of your episodes and time to the main story, and only have subplots that enhance the main storyline. The problem is, this series has so many goddamn subplots, so many of them going on at the same time. None of them get properly explored. Half of them are horrible, and the other half are just complete wastes of fucking time and feel like filler. This is the primary problem of the show. And now a lot of fanboys and fangirls basically say, oh, leave it alone, it's only 12 episodes. Alright, but here's my counter argument. If you have a story like this that deals with these deep themes and stuff, you have to focus on it. So don't put in the big main storyline and then 50 fucking subplots that all go nowhere, are completely pointless, and are awful. Like, the romance in particular is horrible, but I'm gonna get to that one later on. First off, one of the big main problems I have with the show is what they do with the bending itself. The bending in this show gets completely neutered, like in almost every possible way. Like, in the original show, all of the bending elements felt amazing. Like when you saw earthbenders move the earth with their feet, like just shift stuff, like with their minds almost, with their little subtle movements of their feet, or firebenders creating these huge fireballs from their fists and stuff. It all felt spectacular. It all felt like you were watching this amazing epic fight go on. And there's none of that in this show. Like the bending has been completely neutered. Firebending, like, I don't know what happened. Like, there is like kind of like a story explanation for why earthbending is so different, but there is no real explanation for why waterbending is different. Firebending has been completely neutered. Like, it doesn't have any of the flair or power it used to. Waterbending is probably the only one that's gotten kind of an improvement. You know, they can actually bend with their feet. They can actually waterbend with their feet now, which they weren't able to do in the original show. But earthbending got so screwed. Like, Bolin, the main earthbender, is such a pathetic, useless fighter. I cannot even believe it. Like, Toph and Aang in the original show, they could like move shit around. Like they could probably like make entire castles or move entire cities with just their feet. This guy can barely put up a brick wall. Like, he's more efficient with taking a little piece of, like, a little rock and throwing it at people rather than making these huge walls and then really manipulating them. Like, he's completely useless. And this is like a big problem I have with this whole show. The bending is completely neutered. All of the grace and spectacle it had in the old show is completely gone. And because of this, all the fights suffer for it. Like, the only good fight, in my opinion, is the one in the 6th episode when the Equalists invade the arena. That's the only good fight in the whole show. Everything else is boring or is bland or is completely uninteresting. Next problem is, back to the 50 fucking subplots that go nowhere. The first subplot that goes nowhere is actually one that should have been a pivotal part of the story, and I actually hate it because it goes nowhere. It's barely mentioned by the end, and it's actually kind of a retcon. So Korra is this bending prodigy, and she cannot airbend. Why? Because her personality is completely the opposite of an airbender. You know, airbenders are usually very spiritual people. They're all about spirituality. And Korra is a very physical person. You know, she's not about spirituality. She can't even meditate properly, for fuck's sakes. And that causes problems for her. See, here's the problem with this whole thing. She learns all the sequences of the moves, like in one episode. Like, she learns all the sequences for all of the airbending movements. And she's even able to use some of them in a fight. But her whole block doesn't really make any sense, and it's mostly because Aang in the original show suffered something similar with earthbending. You know, he had the exact opposite personality of an earthbender. You know, airbending is all about zigzagging around your enemies. Airbending is about zigzagging around your enemies, you know, avoiding and dodging and stuff. Earthbending is all about holding your ground and basically tanking the hell up as much as you can and taking the full force of your enemy, you know, head on. It's not about dodging, it's about holding your ground. And he couldn't really he could do some small earthbending, but he really couldn't do it to the level of someone like, say, Toph early on. And he you know, basically put himself in the mindscape of an earthbender, and he was able to overcome this block of his. The problem is, Korra is able to do this, and she's still not able to fix it. And the way they make her airbend in this show is so fucking stupid. I wanted to find the creators and kick them in the nuts because that's how stupid it is. And I'm going to get to the ending later on. But the whole airbending subplot is just there as an excuse to get Korra to the city. Once she gets there, it's barely mentioned ever again. We barely see it anymore. And it just gets completely dropped like by episode 4 or 5. Okay, the next subplot that goes absolutely nowhere is pro-bending. One of the reasons why bending was so awesome in the original show is because of how unchained they were. Like, these guys really went at it. Like, they just made all these huge walls crumble. They made castles and stuff. They moved entire cities with earthbending. They made tornadoes with airbending. They made these fire whirlwinds with firebending. It was awesome. And none of that is in pro-bending. Pro-bending limits benders to such a high degree, it's just not fun to watch anymore. It's kind of like Quidditch from Harry Potter. You know, it's cool the first time you see it. Once you see it like 5 more times and they shove this fucking thing down your throat like 5 times before it finally fucks off and never shows up again. They shove it down your throat and then it's just not fun. Like, it limits benders so much it's not fun. Bending is at its best when it's unchained, where they can do whatever the hell they want. That's when bending is at its best. It's not here, and they easily could have found a way to fix it. You know, pro-bending is just in the storyline, just so Mako and Bolin can be introduced. That is the sole purpose for why this whole thing is even there. It's the same thing with the airbending training. You know, the airbending thing is only there just as an excuse to get Korra out of the South Pole and into Republic City. The same thing is here with pro-bending. It solely exists just because the creators thought it would be cool and just introduce Mako and Bolin. Here's the problem. These guys have a criminal background. They worked for the mob and stuff. And in the original show, you had this underground bending tournament type thing. So why the fuck couldn't you just make this a combination of both? Like, why couldn't pro bending have been this underground bending, you know, ring where they basically have these, you know, guys off the street, you know, fighting for money? Like, why couldn't it have been that? You could have had your cool tournament thing, and you could have had all the majesty and glory of bending still there during the fights. And it just feels really stupid the way they executed it here. It just doesn't make any sense, and the pro bending itself is completely pointless to the overall storyline. And by episode 6, it gets completely dropped. It's never mentioned again, and it's just stupid. And then we have the romance. Oh my god, this is the worst romance I have ever seen in my life. It's just terrible. No, fuck Edward and Bella. This is worse than Edward and Bella. This is... Okay, I don't know if it's as bad as Anakin and Padme from the prequels, and I even like the prequels, so that's saying a lot. But this romance was so bad. It was just goddamn cringeworthy. I almost cried in misery and agony at how bad it is. Hell, I'm at the verge of like crying right now just thinking about it. It was so bad. Like, the reason why it's so horrible is because, first of all, Korra falls in love with this douchebag like instantly. Like, they don't know each other. They barely have a single conversation. She's already, you know, deeply madly in love with him. They have one conversation, and then she basically tells him, you know, I love you, you know, I really like you, and I think we were made for each other, based on the fact that you were a douchebag to me when you met me, and based on the fact that we had a single fucking conversation. That's it. She basically tells him we were made for each other based on the fact that they had one conversation, and based on the fact that he completely ignores her half the time, and that he's kind of a douchebag to her. Wow. And then when he tells her, when she tells him this, he is suddenly not super in love with his girlfriend at the time. He's like, oh my god, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm so conflicted. Like, I'm so confused. Things are so crazy all of a sudden. But he showed absolutely no romantic interest in her at all before she confessed her feelings towards him. None. He showed no romantic interest in her whatsoever, and then all of a sudden he's all conflicted and stuff, and yada 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 yada. Then when his girlfriend finds out about the kiss, because Korra kisses him and they don't tell her about it, his girlfriend is logically upset. She's like, how could you do this, to me? I like Korra, but what you did was it was not all right. It was not okay. And then the way this douchebag reacts, good God, like if you watch the show and you tell me he's not a douchebag, I'm gonna smack you across the face, okay, buddy? I'm gonna kick your ass for disagreeing with me on this. To each his own, except on this. Mako's a douchebag. It's done. Like, you cannot argue with me on this. Like, his reaction just sold me on the fact that he's a douchebag. She basically tells him that she's upset about this whole thing, and she asks him, basically to explain himself. And he's like, wow, Asami, you're actually upset that I went behind your back and kissed another girl, and now you're attacking me because of it. Wow, Asami, you are such a bitch. And I just went like, no, dude, you are a douchebag, and you deserve to die a slow and painful death. You need to be skinned alive from your balls to your brain, okay? Lannister style. Like Jaime Lannister invented the best possible torture. Cut the motherfucker open from balls to brain and then feed his intestines to the dogs. Well, Jaime didn't say that last part. I'm adding it, but you get my point. This guy's a scumbag, and I just really hate him. And then at the end of the series, he tells Korra he loves her based on the fact that they've had one fucking conversation the whole show. I'm sorry, but romance shouldn't work like this. I don't think love works like this. Like, hanging around with someone is not enough to make you love them. It's enough to maybe make an attraction with them. I can see that. But you cannot tell someone you love them based on the fact that you've had one motherfucking conversation. I'm swinging my middle finger up here in the sky just to exacerbate my point. And then, alright, then what else? Because there's a lot to say about this show. I'm not even halfway done. This is going to be a long-ass video, but I don't care. I'm going to tear this thing apart. Then we have another subplot, which should have been in the show. Pro-bending and the romance should have been cut out. Done, gone, fuck off. The one subplot, along with maybe the airbending one, is the Tarlok subplot. And now Tarlok is basically the bending version of Amon. He is like this. He's all for bending. He thinks non-benders are scum. He sees them as lesser beings, and he's basically the Amon. He's basically the Amon of the benders, and he's like really cool. He's like this really calculating dude. He has the council at the palm of his hand. You can tell that he's a sleazebag, and he's got some big secret, along with him, and he's really cool. And then they basically, take away all of his power by revealing that he's a bloodbender. Now, him being a bloodbender was actually kind of a cool reveal. The problem with this is the way they resolve it. His bending gets taken away by Amon, and then he just loses everything. And I really dislike this because you could have done No Man's Land in the storyline. Like, if you cut out the horrible romance and the boring pro-bending, in the last few episodes you could have had No Man's Land, where like the city is divided between benders who support Tarlok and non-benders who support Amon, and then you have Korra and her gang in between, and they're like trying to just survive because they're the smallest group and stuff. And you could have had something on the level of No Man's Land in the Avatar world. I really dislike what they did with him there because of all the wasted potential. He was such an awesome character, and he just gets sidelined for the ending. And good God, the ending is such an atrocious sack of shit. Alright, what happens in the ending is that Amon has shown that he's immune to bloodbending, and this caused a lot of, speculation to go around, like, is he a cyborg, is he even human, was he given, like, special powers by Ko or some spirit or something, and speculation was running rampant as to what his powers were. And oh god, I lost my train of thought. And we basically get it revealed that Tarlok says Amon is his brother and that he's a bloodbender too. And you know what his whole motivation for this is? Amon's whole motivation for all of the things he's done, for all of the good points he's made throughout the whole show, is that his dad was a dick to him and that he has big daddy issues. That's it. That is his whole motivation for this whole crusade. It is not to bring equality to the world. It is not to make life better for non-benders. It's there to basically a coping mechanism for his whole daddy issues. Yes, they fucked up what could have been one of the greatest animated bad guys ever, and they turned him into like this psychopath with daddy issues. Am I the only one who's drawing comparisons with Loki from the Marvel movies here? Anyone? Just me? Alright, fuck off. Alright, but then that's not even the worst thing about the ending. What's worse is that Amon basically takes Korra's bending. She is helpless, and then he's about to take Mako's bending, which I was like rooting for them there. I was like, yeah, take that bastard's bending away. Kill him. Finish him! Mortal Kombat style. And then Korra, out of nowhere, is able to bend. How in the flying fuck nugget does taking away 3 of your bending powers give you the last one? How? How does that even work? Can you please explain this to me? Because I just don't get it. I just don't get it. And some fanboys and fangirls basically said that well, she felt love for Mako and she was selfless for the first time in the series. Well, that's all right. I can kind of agree with that there, except her loving Mako because the romance is bullshit. But that probably is the first selfless thing she's ever done in the show, because Korra is not a good character. Like personality-wise, she's fine, but she's not a good character by any means. Like when Amon basically threatens that he's going to bomb or he's going to attack the arena at the big pro bending finale, instead of her being with the council and telling him, yes, shut down the arena, it's not okay for them to be there, we're just risking the lives of people unnecessarily, she basically starts bitching like a drama queen and saying, how can you ruin my big day? Like, how could you ruin my whole pro bending finale? You guys are assholes. And she puts her own vendetta against some other pro bending douchebag above all the people that might get killed in the arena. And there are some people that do get killed. Like when Amon attacks the arena at the end, you can see that he's destroyed all of these metal bending installations, like all these metal bending vehicles, their blimps and stuff, they're all completely destroyed. And, I'm pretty sure he did kill people. And, she puts her own stupid vendetta above the lives of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people in the arena. She's just not a good character. So I can kind of agree with that whole thing, but I mean, it just came out of nowhere. That whole thing, it just doesn't really make any sense. I still have to ask, how the hell does blocking 3 of your elements unlock the last one? It doesn't make any sense. And the only good thing about the ending is the way how Tarlok and Amon's stories end. And I'm not going to say how it ends because it's really appropriate in my opinion. It's really tragic and was probably the only thing I liked about the finale. But then the finale just kept kicking me in the nuts, over and over and over and over and over again, until I was just on my floor begging for it to stop. Mako tells Korra he loves her, she runs off to a cliff, and then she's contemplating suicide. She's standing on the edge, she's crying, and then she's contemplating suicide, which was another thing I really liked about the show. And I was like, yes, Korra's lost something important to her. She's going to develop as a character, and it's going to be awesome next season. And then what happens? Aang, the last avatar shows up. He tells her, when we are at our lowest point, we have the greatest change. And then he gives her not only all of her bending back, he gives her energy bending, which is the ability to take and give people bending. He also gives her control of the avatar state. Now, this was the point where I was like, fuck this. You are going to give this irresponsible, idiotic reckless girl the most powerful ability in the Avatar universe, because the Avatar state is like the Avatar going Super Saiyan. Like, they can cause volcanoes to erupt. Like, they can move entire continents, for fuck's sake. They could probably destroy the world, and you're giving this selfish, reckless, idiotic girl the power to go Super Saiyan, essentially. And I was like, no, why would you do that? Like, Aang is an idiot. Aang is a fucking idiot in this show. Like, would you give a person I described a few minutes ago the power to basically destroy the whole planet? Because I sure as hell wouldn't have. Like, if he just gave her back her bending, I would have said, okay, we have to wrap this up somehow, but I can accept this. But he gives her the Avatar state, and I'm like, no, why would you give her that? Idiot! I apologize for the video breaking off there because my sister barged into my room. She does that to annoy me while I'm recording. But yeah, where was I? Alright, so earlier during the Inquilist invasion, Lin Bei Fong, the chief of police of the whole city, she basically sacrifices herself so that Tenzin and his family can escape, because if Amon takes their bending away, airbending will basically be extinct from the world, and that's really bad. And she sacrifices herself to save them. Then he takes away her bending, and then Korra, in the last scene, basically destroys her whole sacrifice by giving her back her bending. And I just... At this point, I was done. Like, I just accepted whatever the fuck was going on screen, because I just knew it couldn't get any worse, After seeing Aang give the power to go Super Saiyan to the most irresponsible person on the planet, and then Maka and Korra telling them they love each other based on the fact they've had one single damn conversation. Yeah, at that point I was done. I just accepted it. I watched it to the end. I turned it off, and then I went to do this video. What else? Like, I'm not even done with the show. There's just a lot of stuff that still needs to be said. Like, the comedy in this show really doesn't work because the subject matter is a lot darker than usual. And here's the thing. The reason why the humor worked in the old show is because all of the characters were like 13 or 14 years old, so it made sense. Here, everyone is like 17, 18, or 19, and Bolin, who's like the main comic relief, he acts like a 12-year-old, and it doesn't work, especially with the tone of this show. And because it's a lot darker than Avatar: The Last Airbender, and that kind of humor just doesn't work anymore. And I just think when I see these teenage characters like do these 12-year-old kind of things, it just doesn't work for me. Like here's something that really bothers me. With a lot of teenagers in fiction, like they never talk about sex. Like they never even imply sex, and what teenager wouldn't see like a pretty girl and just say oh, she's hot or whatever, or she looks smoking or something. It's something like that, like acknowledge that sex exists or something, or imply it. Like there have been plenty of ways PG-13 movies have been able to imply sex. Like fuck, Iron Man 3, which is supposed to be, viewable by everybody, has a scene where Pepper basically tells Tony she's going to go for a shower, and then she tells him he's going to join her. Like, that's a clear implication of sex. And that's something that really bothers me with a lot of teenage fictional characters, and the same problem is kind of here. Like, you can have allusions to sex and make them subtle enough for the adults and for the teenagers to notice them, but for the kids to just, shrug them off and not get them. That's what good shows do. Not here, of course. The comedy here is just unbelievably awkward. It's even cringeworthy sometimes. Like, I don't think I even chuckled at any point during the whole show. What did I like about this show? Well, I think this is probably the best-looking animated series that's ever been made by an American studio. I think the animation is absolutely spectacular. There were just some points where my jaw hit the floor. That's how impressed I was. The one character I did kind of like was Asami, because she does actually go through a lot of bad stuff in the story, and she still sticks by her whole... she actually sticks by her principles. It's not like... It's kind of like the Luke Skywalker Darth Vader thing from Star Wars, where her dad's evil and he offers her the choice to join him and the Equalists, but she still sticks to her guns. She thinks it's wrong, and she basically still sticks with her friends, even though her only girlfriend that we know of is a bitch who stole her boyfriend, and her boyfriend is a cheating scumbag. And she still sticks by these people, even though they're both scumbags to her. And she still thinks, what her dad is doing is wrong. And I thought that was really admirable. And she's probably the one character I liked. And that, and her being a depowered character, like, she has no superpower. She relies on her gadgets. Like, a lot of people say she's like the Batman of the Avatar universe, and that's kind of true because she knows a lot of martial arts. She uses gadgets she uses gadgets. She uses she uses gadgets like Batman during fights. She knows how to drive motorcycles, cars, planes, even mechs. She's really good at hand-to-hand fighting, and she's like a bazillionaire. So yeah, that's probably why I like her, is because she's kind of like the Batman of the Avatar universe. And if there was like a Batman show where she's kind of like the Batman of this universe, I would so watch that. Like, that should be like a comic book or something. Like, the comic books are crap anyway, so why don't you just do like a what if comic book or something like that. But yeah, she's probably the only character I genuinely liked throughout the whole show. I really liked Amon before they fucked him up. I really liked Tarlok before they kind of ruined him too. So yeah, when all was said and done, I liked the animation. I like Asami Sato. I think everything else is crap. I think this TV series, all the characters are either boring or they're scumbag douchebag assholes. I think there are way too many subplots that go nowhere, are completely pointless, and are just filler. The romance is probably one of the worst ones I've ever seen. I still stick to my guns, and I still think it's worse than the romance in Twilight. It's almost as bad as Anakin and Padme in the prequels. And overall, I think this is a terrible, terrible show. Like, don't watch this. Like, if you're a fan of Avatar, you've already watched this. If you're someone who's kind of heard of this show and he's, like, thinking of watching this, don't. Stay the fuck away from this. I beg you. Watch Young Justice Season 1. Watch Earth's Mightiest Heroes. Watch Spectacular Spider-Man. Watch Avatar The Last Airbender. Watch anything besides this. Hell, watch a live-action show. You want a good show? Go watch Game of Thrones. You want a good show? Watch Breaking Bad. Any of those shows. Watch those before you watch this. I beg you, good sir and or madam. Stay the ever-loving fuck away from Legend of Korra. That's an order, okay? You cannot argue with me about this. Stay the hell away from this. Trust me, it's not worth your time, your money, and I'm pretty sure it's going to kill every single one of your brain cells, more so than any drink or drug could ever do in your life. I give this show a 1.5 out of 10. It's quite possibly one of the worst pieces of crap I've ever watched in my life. And you know what? All those other good shows have been canceled except this. This thing has 3 more seasons. I have lost all faith in mankind. I'm so depressed. Oh my god. I don't even know what to say anymore. Thanks guys for watching. I hope the video was enjoyable. Please excuse me while I go kill myself at the mere thought of suffering through this shit for 3 more seasons. I'll see you later. Bye.